Welcome once again to Wesley Impact. In my thought today, I'm going to begin a new series from Matthew's Gospel, and I've been looking at the teaching of Jesus on the theme, Something Greater Than Peace. We take a look at one of Wesley Mission Centres and its commitment and response to the high rate of homelessness and families in Sydney's West. And we meet a woman who's walked her own journey of reconciliation, rehabilitation and salvation. Today it's quite hard to imagine that Janine Apri has once found herself as a drug dealer in Sydney's notorious King's Cross. Janine, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Before we start delving into, let's explore something of that journey. If you were to say to somebody that this is where your life was to turn out, it would be most unlikely that you would have ever turned out this way in terms of drugs at that point, wouldn't it?
In terms of becoming a drug addict or in terms of being here today?
No, being a drug addict would have...
Yes.
Because you're not brought up in a home where that's the natural atmosphere, are you?
No, but I guess drug addiction affects people from all walks of life. And so I myself was brought up in a Christian home, actually brought up at the WEC headquarters, which is a worldwide mission. But addiction affects people from upper class families as much as it does from dysfunctional, broken families.
That's probably helpful to say because it stops people having a caricature that's probably unhelpful. But let's talk in the positive way too. You're a talented songwriter, and by 19 you were under contract with Castle Music, which of course is the publishing company for EMI. What a remarkable story at that age. How did all that happen?
Well, I was always a gifted piano player and singer, so I started playing by ear. I'd come home from preschool and just sit at the piano and play the songs that I'd sung at school. And so I went on to be trained classically, but at 16 started to write songs, and so came to the notice of EMI's publishing company by someone that had actually heard me singing in a coffee shop. And so for a few years I worked with the songwriting teams, writing jingles and recording some of that stuff. So
by the age of 24, and that's a 5-year window, important window in your life, you then got to the stage where you become addicted on heroin. You started actually selling to fund the addiction, and that's probably the journey that happens for some people, doesn't it?
Well, I guess it's difficult. Some people sort of say, how can a drug addict get to that desperate a stage that they become a prostitute or that they're robbing houses or even robbing their own mothers? But addiction, once it takes a hold, it becomes quite desperate. So for me, I started off by smoking pot in the recording studio with the other musos. Didn't want to be different, and I found when I did that I felt for the first time comfortable in my own skin. And so it progressed from pot to cocaine, which was readily available in the circles that I moved in as a performer, and then heroin, when it took a hold, just destroyed my life. So
let me move on. I know you describe yourself as a high-class user, as it were, but you eventually at 30 you met your husband Lewis, and you were both drug users, so you shared that in common, as it were, and you fled Sydney in search of a different kind of life.
Yeah, so we were dealers in King's Cross for quite a time. I found myself pregnant. We tried to move away. Geographical is what drug addicts call it. We had $1,000 habits at that time a day each, and we moved to Port Macquarie, but soon after my baby was born, we returned to the drug addiction, and it got worse than it ever had been.
So before we go on to talk about the transition into freedom and your subsequent work of Destiny Haven, which I do want to talk to you about, I'd like to, at this stage, just hold it there for a moment and introduce today's performer. Shani Russell is a jazz musician who's written a song that fits with Janine's story. It's called Heart to Heart.
Talk with you, heart to heart. You're the one who saw the someone in me. I want to be with you, heart to heart. Lord, I want to be all you planned for me. I love you, I love you. to do with my heart. Let your spirit be here at work in me. I love you. I love you, Lord. For you've given my life back to me. You chose me, and now I'm yours and happy to be. People look at the outside, but you look in my heart, and what you see is important to me, 'cause I want us to be heart to heart. Yes, I want us to be heart to heart.
Keith Garner's new book, A Word for the World, is now available. Dealing with the 4 themes of success, sorrow, society and spirituality, the 16 sermons in this book will definitely inspire and challenge you as you read. The book also includes a DVD featuring interviews with Nick Farr-Jones, Lee Hatcher, Tanya Plibersek and Margaret Somerville. For more information on A Word for the World, please contact us on 9263 5555 or at impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
Now, if you'd like to know more about Shani's music, her details are going to be online all this week. We're back with Destiny Havens, Jenny, and we're going to talk a little bit more. You've told us that story of how you went to Port Macquarie after you were arrested. You knew something of that challenge in your life, and you're going to be a mother at the time. It was perhaps at that time that you started remembering a place that took in families and people in your situation.
So my father had told us about a place called Sherwood Cliffs. So when I rang him, we'd been married, and we'd only been married 3 months. Our daughter was 13 months old when we got married, and our addiction took us to such a depth that I was 39 kilos, Lewis was 52 kilos, and he's a Maori, so he was half the man he is today. But I rang my dad, and he said, "No, you need to ring." And I think that's the best advice that you can give addicts. If they want help, they need to do the ringing themselves. So we did, and we found our way to the doors of Sherwood Cliffs, which is a Christian rehab out of Coffs Harbour. We spent a year there, and in that place we were loved back to life. We were unconditionally loved back to life. They didn't preach at us, they just loved us. And we saw, I guess, as I put it, Jesus was skin on.
And in a way, that's helped to set the pattern of how you've done your own work too, in a sense. Now, along the way, you recommitted your life back to God. You've been brought up in that Christian home, but it became real in a special way to you. And you went to Bible college, and then you went to work in a drug rehabilitation centre in Spain.
So we did 3 years in Bible college at a work Bible college in Tassie, which is a missionary training college, and we spent 3 months with Betel, which is run by Elliot Tepper in Spain. It's a work that rescues addicts from the garbage dumps and brings them into a place that they then, stay on and serve the ministry and help others, find help. And I guess that really set the tone for the kind of model that we wanted to have in Australia.
For yourself and Lewis then already beginning to feel this is what God wanted you to do, to work with people.
We always knew that. Even in rehab, we had a vision to help women. God had given us a heart to someday have a place that women could come, because there's so few places for women, and so I don't think there's any place like ours. But I mean, there's lots of different places, but certainly Destiny is a place that God established, and miraculously we had no money, and God miraculously provided this property, and the team that work with us.
Tell me a little bit about what you do then. I want to hear that.
So Destiny Haven is a residential, we call it a life skills training program rather than a drug rehab, because we take women that have got eating disorders or self-harm, women that have been sexually abused or other abused in childhood, drugs, alcohol affected people, women that are stuck. That
sometimes a mixture of all of those
things. Yeah, a mixture of all. The women that can't get their lives on track and they just feel stuck.
How long do they stay and what do you do?
Yeah. So we ask for at least a 6-month minimum, but 12 months or more, depending on the woman. So it's an individual program and each woman is going to be different depending on what her issues are. And it's a staged program. So they come into the program and as they get well, they're given responsibility in the community. Some of them are able to study or work part-time as they kind of come to a transition stage. And then others really feel that God calls them to stay and be volunteers and help those that are coming in behind them to see that there's hope for a future.
Now, you and Lewis have a real commitment to Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
But you don't punch it at people, do you,
No.
when they come in?
I think it's really important that people, they're going to see Jesus before they hear whatever you say. And I think, you know, we live on the property full-time. Certainly we're human, we're not super people. And so when we make mistakes, I guess it's the modelling of apologising and just loving people and accepting people back to life as we were shown. And so, you know, certainly every program that we run, psychoeducation programs, art therapy, whatever the self-directed learning modules I set the girls, are all done from a Christian perspective. But they come in and some choose not to become Christians.
What about one remarkable story? Have you got some that you would say that's a lovely story about their life?
I think there's lots of stories. I guess Catherine would be one. Catherine came through the program and stayed on for a time as our assistant manager, met her beautiful husband selling our chocolates in the street, and has now gone on in her own right to do remarkable things. And, you know, she's a beautiful woman and I guess a beautiful example of what our heart is for Destiny, that women get their lives back and fulfil their own unique destiny.
And finally, plans for the future.
Our plans for the future. We have a big dream. I have a dream to see a place for men and a place for families and also to have a social enterprise of increasing our social enterprise of making chocolates and jams and relishes that we can then sell to fund what we do.
And allow people to be sustainable in their own lives.
Absolutely.
Look, it's a delight that you've been along and shared with us, Janine. We wish you very well for the future.
Yeah,
God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We'll be back in just a moment. Let's go.
It's been 200 years since the first Methodists met in Australia. To celebrate 2 centuries of faith and pioneering care, CEO and presenter Reverend Dr. Keith Garner takes us back to where it all began.
But we don't begin here at the heart of London. We begin in a town in the north of England.
In this fascinating narrative, Reverend Garner chronicles the history of the life and times of the founder of Methodism, John Wesley. This fresh and thought-provoking documentary takes us on a journey throughout the United Kingdom, beginning in John Wesley's hometown of Epworth.
John Wesley was born here on the 17th of June, 1703.
This 1-hour DVD travels onto his education years and beginnings of social justice in Oxford, to his final years in London. For more information on John Wesley, the man and his mission, call 02 9263 5555 or email us at impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
Wesley Mission also provides a safe haven for people who need to help get their own lives back on track. At Wesley's Noreen Towers community in Sydney's West, we have support workers who assist families to address the issues that contributed to their homelessness, including drug abuse, domestic violence and financial stress. Here is Aya's story.
Come on, boys! Get your school bag, put on your socks and your shoes, please. Rita, Osis here, come get your bag, please. Lai, no lunch there. You want banana?
Hi, my name is Aya, and this is my story. Back in 2011, my kids' dad left us. We were so struck with the rent. The rent was very behind, and we were trying to find a place to live. I was crying every night. When my kids left the school, I cried out loud. I was so sad, not knowing where to go. That's when we moved into Wesley Mission Noreen Towers. That's when we get all the support and all the help.
Wesley Noreen Towers community is a service that's out here in the western suburbs of Sydney, and we work with families that are homeless. program is a 9-month program, and so that means that families get a bit of an opportunity just to settle, to rest, and to get their family back into some sort of a balance. And it may just be 2 factors that make them homeless. They lose their job, lack of finances. There may be family violence. Other services that we offer here besides housing is to ensure that the families have an opportunity to move forward in the community. At the moment we've got 5 women that are doing a TAFE computer course, which is going to make them work ready. Here at Wesley and Orientales community, health and nutrition is really important. We've just recently having these cooking classes here. It's great fun, a lot of fun. Aya's been able to join in and have fun with learning new methods of cooking and being able to cook on a lower budget. Also, we have the after-school programs. The children love to come to the after-school programs. We have Zumba, we have African dancing.
This is a special occasion for us. We're actually here for a special reason and for a family that used to live here at Orientales with us. And Aya, I'd just like to say that we're so proud of you out in the community, just like we're going to be proud of everyone else.
It makes me so happy. Now I'm moving out with a lot of experience. It's a new beginning for me because now I got my own place. I'm paying my rent. I'm looking after my kids by myself. You can't redo the past, but you can look forward for the future. For me personally, I would like to thank the Wesley Mission for their help and for everything they have done for me and my kids. For me, it's a blessing from God. Thank God for them. Without faith, nothing is possible.
Today I begin a series which moves us through the central part of Matthew's Gospel. Although Matthew was probably not the first Gospel to be written, I think that would be Mark, its position as the first in the New Testament tells us something of the popular acceptance of the importance of Matthew's Gospel by many in the early Christian community, especially at the time when they were pulling together the books of the New Testament. Jesus is brutally honest with his followers whenever he talks about the theme of discipleship. Right from the very beginning, he's very straight with the disciples. Let me read to you 3 verses from Matthew chapter 10. These are verses 40 through to 42. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. Now, these are very strong words in themselves, in that they have to be understood in the background of some of the strongest words that Jesus spoke and recorded for us in the New Testament. Let me read to you also verse 34. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Now, you might feel very confused about all of that. You might say to yourself, gosh, I thought the gospel was all about loving one another and Jesus would only speak kindness and there would never, ever be anything of the strong things. Jesus is often referred to as the Prince of Peace. So here when he says this, it challenges that thought. So much genuine effort by Christians has gone into promoting peace. Of course it has, and so it will continue to be the case. And peace has all the feeling of what is right for us to do. But we've heard from our guests today that life is not easy. And sometimes even people from all walks of life can find themselves drawn into a world that is so contrary to what we believe to be the best way. And the words of Jesus shock us. It was Isaiah who had given the title, the Prince of Peace, in one of those servant songs talking about the coming Messiah. The prophets talked about an era that would be ushered in when the Messiah comes, which would be the beginning of a reign of peace. The point is that there is something greater than peace, and namely that is truth. Jesus is truth, truth made flesh. And to acknowledge that truth will sometimes cause hostility and strife. There's so much more that Jesus has to say, and clearly we should promote the way of peace in every sense. But ultimately, we must not be surprised if the truth of God in Jesus Christ is rejected by some people. But to those who receive him, he brings his peaceable presence. And you know, receiving Jesus Christ is the clue, is the key. It was in a story when someone's life had reached a point where they were not just taking drugs, but selling drugs. It was again turning to Jesus Christ that brought a way which is meaningful and whole. There is a sense in which all our lives need that turning point. So before we acknowledge him as the Prince of Peace, we sometimes have to recognize that he is the one that disturbs the equilibrium sometimes of the way that we're living. And only when that happens can we truly put our hands and our lives into his and find ourselves totally and utterly transformed. So the message can firstly be bad news before it's good news. And sometimes he comes into a community and into the world and causes something that doesn't feel like peace. But to those who receive him, he brings his peaceable presence, and that presence comes through his truth.
If you would like to know more about today's topic, or for more on Keith's message, contact Keith by writing to Wesley Mission, Post Office Box A5555, Sydney South 1235, or email impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. We leave you with Shanti Batse singing Your Grace Still Amazes Me. Until next week, goodbye and God bless you.
Tender mercies like a river with no end. It overwhelms me. Cover